Is Bitcoin better than gold? I mean, no, it's better than fiat, without a doubt. But we're going to be comparing Bitcoin to gold and fiat and looking at some of the transaction volume, some of the interesting things that have been happening recently in terms of numbers when it comes down to Bitcoin. In 2018, we saw more than $3.2 trillion worth of Bitcoin payments that were processed on the public blockchain. Now, of that $3.2 trillion transaction volume, this did not include over-the-counter sales, which probably accounted for a pretty decent amount as well. But this is from the exchange market, which is massive. And by the way, if you want to keep a portion of that $3.2 trillion safe for whatever you have in your wallet, make sure you keep it secure. Ledger Nano X is on sale. There is a referral link down below. Helps out the channel a lot if you guys are in the market for grabbing yourselves a new ledger. Now, what about gold? I want to actually explore the idea of comparing these and about what they can and can't do. Gold. For transactions, it's not very easy to send abroad. It's expensive to send. Just imagine shipping kilo blocks of gold. It's not accepted almost anywhere. It's very easily confiscatable by governments. It's difficult to divide. Maybe you have gold powder, right? And you can use that. But realistically, that's not a very efficient way of sending money. Now, gold can't be counterfeited, which is pretty awesome. So there's definitely got that going for it. And gold has a long tradition of being a store of value. And gold does have real world practical use cases as well. It's good for microchips and jewelry. And to be honest, gold's cool, but it is outdated in terms of technology. Again, it's not easy to send. It's easily confiscatable. It's expensive to send, etc., etc. But it's interesting too that it does have this amazing longevity. Just think about every piece of gold ever mined. That piece of gold could have been mined 3,000 years ago by the Romans. Could have been mined 5,000 years ago by the Egyptians. That still has value today. That same gold, it's still gold. It hasn't diminished in its properties, and it's still worth whatever the price of gold is worth, which is amazing. That is some serious longevity when it comes down to it, that we can see thousands of years later something maintaining its value. And there are some, for example, debit card players who are trying to make gold more user-friendly, so you can have your gold sitting with a third party, swipe your debit card, and every time you swipe it, it deducts a small amount of gold from your total holdings. It's kind of like crypto debit cards. It's just using the old system of finance, going through Visa and MasterCard, trusting some third party to hold your gold and all these different things. Not a big fan, without a doubt. Gold does have its place as a store of value. But remember, we're only one asteroid away from basic massive inflation of gold. Imagine if a whole asteroid of gold crashed into the earth. That would be it. Gold price is done. No, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. So gold does remain rare enough anyway, and valuable because we have a long tradition of seeing its value. And that brings us to fiat. Oh, it's such a dirty word, fiat. Ugh. Anyway, fiat does have its advantages when it comes down to it. It's very widely accepted. You can spend fiat currency, well, anywhere within your country, basically. And if you have some fiat currencies like the US dollars or the euros, there's even some countries when you're traveling that will accept those currencies as well. It's very easy to send fiat currency within your own country, within your own banking infrastructure. But when it comes to things like international transfers, then we start to talk about a different picture. If you're in the US and you want to send money to Brazil, for example, there might be some different payment operators that make it not terribly expensive and not terribly slow. But basically when it comes down to it, it is an expensive process, it is a slow process, and is a process that is definitely censorable, without a doubt. And they censor those kind of things regularly. In fact, there's whole countries that if you're, for example, in the US, you're not allowed to send money to. But it is accepted in a wide range of places, depending on which fiat you have, of course. It's very easy to steal which is a pretty big drawback of fiat currency, and it's got an infinite supply. An infinite supply. They just keep on printing it. Print and print and print and print. And every single day that they print new money, they're stealing money from you, and they're stealing money from me, and they're stealing money from everybody. Because the real value of that dollar you have decreases just a tiny little fraction every time they print a new one. And of course, fiat currency is relatively easy to counterfeit. And I say relatively easy. I have never counterfeited any fiat currency, so I don't know just how hard it is to get a printing press and make your bills and all that fun stuff. But it happens all the time. For the people who are really big enthusiasts of counterfeiting fiat, they do it. They don't counterfeit gold because you can't counterfeit gold. And they don't counterfeit Bitcoin because you can't counterfeit Bitcoin either. Something to keep in mind. And when you actually look at fiat and understand what it is, if it wasn't for the fact that we all just accept this as being the thing that's done, it would sound like one giant scam. Because it kind of is. But it's a scam that we all kind of accept as like normal and okay because it's like, it's our scam, right? Now, of course, we have settlement systems such as the SWIFT network. This is talking about sending an international transaction. They require a minimum of 3 to 5 business days. Business days, remember business days. So Saturday and Sunday are off. National holidays are off for international wire transfers. Well, of course, Bitcoin and other major crypto assets typically can settle within 1 hour. Well, Bitcoin's the one that takes the longest, can take up to an hour. Whereas if you're sending something like, I don't know, NEM, for example, settles in seconds. Very, very different from fiat currencies. Now, to compare some of the numbers in terms of where Bitcoin stands today, in 2018, so we had $3.2 trillion in value done on Bitcoin. Now, that's versus Western Union, which sent $200 billion in remittances overseas. That's compared to Discover Card. Wait, Discover... Who still uses Discover Card? I can't believe that's still a thing. Well, apparently it is because that's $300 billion a year goes through Discover Card, so someone's using it. PayPal, $500 billion. MasterCard, $5.2 trillion. WeChat, $6 trillion. Alipay, Alipay, $8.3 trillion. And Visa, $10.2 trillion. That sounds really big when you think about it. 3.2 trillion versus, PayPal's small amount, or we're almost at MasterCard kind of levels in terms of value, right? But you have to remember that this isn't merchant value, and that number can be really deceptive if you're not kind of honest with what it was. A lot of this is exchange volume. It's people buying more cryptocurrencies, exchanging Bitcoin for Ethereum, and then Ethereum for Bitcoin. And that's a very impressive amount of money. It really, really is. It shows that there is a lot of money. And hey, look, how much of that was part of faked exchange volumes? Maybe this number is drastically lower as a result. What we really need to see with Bitcoin is merchant value. Because when it becomes more than just buying other cryptocurrencies, or just selling your cryptocurrencies for dollars so you can cash out, when we actually have merchant value happening, that is the next level in terms of cryptocurrency adoption. And this is what I really, really want to see happening for cryptocurrencies is merchant adoption. People to be going down to the local shops, buying a coffee, buying lunch, buying a bottle of wine, buying a car, buying a house, any of this stuff. Bitcoin doesn't have to just be used for big transactions. It's a myth. Right now, transaction fees are pennies. You can use a different cryptocurrency. It's less than a penny. It's cheap enough to go out and spend your crypto. So don't be afraid to do it. If you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to spend my Bitcoin today, and then it's going to be worth $1 bajillion in the future, we'll spend and replace. Incentivize merchants to actually accept it. I've heard so many stories of merchants that stop accepting Bitcoin because nobody comes in and buys anything. It doesn't become relevant for them. If one person comes in once a year and buys something using Bitcoin, that merchant is not going to keep doing that. It's just more of a headache than anything. But if someone's coming in once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, that becomes real. So please, if you know of any merchants in your town that accept Bitcoin, Go and spend Bitcoin with them. Or if you have a favorite coffee shop or something that you go to, ask them if they've considered accepting Bitcoin. We all want adoption to happen, and we can take this into our own hands as a community to help this happen. And the retail market is going to be a massive part of that. So something you can do as a community to help move this along. And for merchants, there is a lot to like about accepting Bitcoin. For example, Visa. Visa charges merchants 1.51%. Damn, that's a lot of money. Think about that. They made 1.51% on $10.2 trillion. Visa's doing pretty good. Plus 10 cents. So it's 10 cents plus 1.5%. That's why you'll go into places and they'll accept credit cards, but the minimum purchase is $5, for example. Because if you buy a stick of gum using your credit card, they just lost half their profit. It's super petty and crazy, but you see people do that from time to time. Now, there's the fees, so that kind of sucks. Then, of course, you have to wait to get your money. So it's usually like a 30 or 60 day wait in order to actually get delivered the money that you have just sold a product for. So if somebody walks in, you sell them a bottle of wine for $30, and then you got to wait 30 days to get your $30 with the credit card. And then Visa takes a percentage plus their tiny little set fee. And of course, after 3 weeks, you might get a chargeback. So that guy walked out with that $30 bottle of wine. Credit card company says, yo, hey, we're going to charge back on that, and you're out your $30. Bitcoin, there's no chargebacks. If you send that money, it's yours. Once it leaves my wallet, it is the merchant's. Done. And if merchants are afraid of accepting Bitcoin because of the volatility, there are services like Coinbase Commerce that lets them accept Bitcoin and it could get changed straight into dollars, for example. So it removes that. Now there's, of course, a fee for that. Can't escape fees unless you want to just keep the Bitcoin yourself. But then, hey, maybe make $1 million off of it. Especially if you're a merchant and you're accepting Bitcoin now. A lot of potential there. Now, the PayPal CEO recently threw a bit of shade on Bitcoin, basically saying we're not seeing many retailers accept cryptocurrencies. And he's right. We're not. I'm sure that if you were to look at that $500 million from PayPal, was all people buying stuff on eBay and whatnot. Retail acceptance. Actual retail acceptance. Lots of e-commerce happening right there on PayPal. So he is not unjustified in the shade that he's throwing. So again, it comes back to us. But still, merchant adoption is increasing all the time. Japan has made some huge moves in terms of retail acceptance. Then we have services like Travel by Bit. I went to Australia and traveled for 3 days, almost completely on Bitcoin. There were a couple things that in the end we couldn't pay for on Bitcoin. But most things we did. Right? And people like Travel by Bit in Australia, they're pushing for more brick and mortar acceptance. So be the change you want to see in the world, guys. Spend and replace. Ask your local merchants to accept Bitcoin and visit the ones who do. Now, expanding on the idea here, capital controls across the world make it very difficult for fiat, and they make it very difficult for gold. Just imagine trying to send $1 billion of gold. In fact, countries have asked for their gold back before, and then, for example, let's say Russia asks, hey, USA, can I have my gold back? Oh, that's going to take us a while to get you that gold because we don't actually have it, or we're going to have to go through a whole bunch of paperwork, et cetera, et cetera. Not to mention if you're just a dude in like Nigeria and you want to send money to France, well, your government's got capital controls and they're not going to let you send that money. But if you have Bitcoin, I love you, Bitcoin. Bitcoin is easy to send. Bitcoin is permissionless. You don't need a bank account. You don't need to ask your government, oh, please, government, can I send some Bitcoin, please? No, just do it. Bitcoin doesn't care who you are, where you're from, what you do. You just send that Bitcoin. Censorship resistant, it's cheap to send, even though Bitcoin has notoriously had some high fees at some points. Even at the times of it being $20 or $30 to send, still cheaper, even in that situation, if you're sending thousands of dollars overseas, than going to a bank. But right now, we do have a fortunate situation where sending Bitcoin only costs a few cents. So again, when I went to Australia, I spent 72 hours. I probably did 20 different Bitcoin transactions and probably spent about 50 cents in fees in total. So not that much at all. Bitcoin is highly divisible. This is where it really kicks gold's butt because gold, not super easy to divide on the spot. Fiat, yes. Gold, not so much. Merchant acceptance does suck right now for Bitcoin. We're working on it. It's getting better all the time, as I said, but again, we need to make it better. I guess Bitcoin also doesn't have that real world physical make gold into stuff. You know, gold can be made into microchips, gold can be made into other stuff. But that's okay. Bitcoin doesn't need to do that. Let gold do the microchip thing. That's gold's thing. You rock it, gold. You be you, man. You be you. Authentically true self gold. Rock it, man. And Bitcoin's going to do Bitcoin. Of course, Bitcoin cannot be counterfeited. As we mentioned, some people might argue that forks of Bitcoin are actually counterfeiting Bitcoin, but it's really not the same. It's really not the same. It's more along the lines of, imagine counterfeiting dollars. They look the same, right? And so you would accept that thinking that you're accepting the real thing. Whereas like Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, for example, accepting those, you realize it's like accepting monopoly money instead of accepting dollars. Holds real value to some, but not to many. And in certain situations, if you play Monopoly, of course. Bitcoin fees for merchants to accept, it's nothing. So again, if you're a merchant, you don't need to pay the fees to Visa. You might need to pay it if you want to cash back out into dollars straight away, though. And it only costs pennies for the senders to sell. And Bitcoin, of course, is the future of money. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Again, Bitcoin will not be the only one that will have success in the future. There will be plenty of other cryptocurrencies that will do great things. Bitcoin could become the new gold standard. Now, this would see us hit that fabled, $10 million Bitcoin, for example. This is a number that has actually been thrown around quite a bit recently. And we see a debt crisis brewing. But really, let's get back to 20,000. That would be great. Take away the fantasies. Go $10 million. Let's get back to 20,000. Let's get to $100,000. That's going to be such a hard point to cross. But once we do cross these kind of numbers, then we're going to start rivaling gold as the premier economic option of the world. Imagine the $1 million Bitcoin. That's really big at that point. And if we saw a $1 million Bitcoin, we would well surpass gold. A $10 million Bitcoin, I mean, that's some next level stuff right there. Will we ever get to that point? A lot of external factors have to come into play to see this happen, but I think a lot of people looking back at $3 would have never thought that $20,000 would have happened. And it did. Interesting as well, the CEO of NASDAQ, Adina Friedman, said that Bitcoin could be the global currency of the future. She argues that investors remain at the gates, though, due to the lack of oversight and regulation. It's coming. It's being built. It's happening. The question is when, not if. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. You will let me know, guys, what you think down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video. You guys are super awesome. Seriously, I love you all. Thank you so much for coming out here and watching this video. You guys make every day a pleasure, so thank you so much. And if you enjoyed this video, thumbs up. Super awesome, guys. You know the deal. Subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. If you want to know when I put out a new video, hit that notification bell down below. Long live the blockchain, and peace out till next time.